Isle of Eigg is the nearest Hebridean island, situated southwest of the mountain sea, the most westerly village on mainland Scotland. Access is by the Loch Nevis from Mallaig all year round, weather permitting, and by the shorter passage from Eigg on the shearwater during the holiday season. On this trip, we were on the shearwater. It usually takes about an hour to get to Eigg. The skipper will often change course to allow passengers a closer look at any wildlife spots in the water, and minke whales are often encountered. On this trip, we were lucky enough to see some common seals lounging around in the sun. Then we had some real luck. Ronnie spotted a basking shark. These fish are huge. This one was about 20 feet long. They can grow to 30 feet. They are filter feeders and swim along with their very large jaws wide open in the plankton-rich waters just below the surface. Ronnie manoeuvred the boat so we all got incredible views of this amazing fish.
You lamped in its back?
Yes.
Lamped on its back, see the dorsal.
They are the second largest filter feeder in the world. They cruise at about 2 knots, filtering 2,000 tons of water per hour. Their diet, plankton, invertebrates and small fish. They are an amazing sight. In this distant view of Eigg can be seen the northern and southern high moorland plateau with the black crag of the Sgúr dominating the southern end. As we near Eigg, much of its volcanic past is revealed along the eastern cliff of the northern plateau of the island. We see in section flow upon flow of solidified lava that erupted through cracks in the Earth's crust from the Earth's mantle beneath some 60 million years ago. This volcanic activity started violently with eruptions of volcanic ash, now visible at the foot of the Sgúr. Then followed the gentle excursion of the runny basalt, lava which quickly solidified on the surface. The cracks were caused by stretching and rifting of the Earth crust prior to the opening up of the early northern Atlantic. These lava eruptions smothered the entire Hebridean region and beyond, but most has since been uplifted and eroded, leaving the present-day landscape. The oldest and lowest lava flow, with the columns, is 63 million years old and is now overlain by the light grey band called mugarite, a softer rock. All other flows are of olivine basalt. The black crag dominating the southern plateau is the 393 metres high Sgúr, the highest point of the island, a position resulting from the resistance to erosion of the hard pitchstone of which it is composed. As we pass Kildonan, we know we're nearly there. The sound of pipes usually welcomes you to the island. In fair weather, landing is straightforward. It's more difficult in bad weather, though. But the crew are always there to help you.
Somebody's dropped the map.
You're not going to get your fleece out. Hi.
As I said earlier, you can come over on the Loch Nevis from Mallaig. In 2006, a new harbour was completed, and now the Loch Nevis can dock, making loading an bad weather. Vehicles can now be driven on and off with ease, making the unloading of supplies for the island much easier. A tractor can now be used for large and heavy goods. Unloading at the final destination still has to be done by hand, though. But many hands make light work. The harbour also acts as a meeting place for the islanders, where they can chat to friends and discuss the problems of the day. You can even hire a bike. There's a tea room where you can get refreshments and a hot meal if you wish. On a nice day, there are seats out the back where you can enjoy a view of Castle Island and the lighthouse at Ardnamurchan, which is the most westerly point in mainland Scotland. There's also a shop that has a large range of goods on offer.
Unless there's some massive delay, we should get it.
There's a lovely gift shop as well, which sells all manner of gifts, a lot of which were made on the island. Pottery, garments.
We're back in to get the okay. Thanks a lot, thank you.
There's a selection of informative books, one called Eigg, The Story of an Island, that was written by This book is very interesting and was really useful in the making of this video. These two sheepdogs are waiting patiently for their master. In June 1997, the Isle of Eigg was purchased by the Isle of Eigg Heritage Trust, and this monument and commemorative plaque were erected overlooking the harbour. As you leave the harbour, there is a map showing different walks you can take on the island. From that point, you get a lovely view of the harbour's white sandy beaches. There's usually something going on in the harbour, whether it's boats or wildlife. If you're lucky, the great northern diver and red-throated diver can be seen in early May. Such beautiful birds. You regularly get other species birds visiting the harbour. In May, you can see male eider ducks displaying and defending their chosen female. When courtship is over, all the males leave for the sea or sheltered coves. As you leave the harbour and head for the lodge, you go through a wood, and the floor is covered in wild garlic, and the smell is just wonderful. There's all manner of wildlife to be seen. The lodge, once the residence of the last laird, still has beautiful gardens with exotic trees and wild flowers. On display in the front entrance there are several pieces of early Celtic art dating from the 7th-8th century. Here we have a fragment of Torridon sandstone with an intricate pattern of intertwining lines and triquetral knots, an example of early Celtic art. In the grounds of the lodge, there's the recently modernised community hall. On the 6th of June 2008, it was used for the official handover of the electrification of the island from the Scottish Hydroelectric to Eigg Electric. Most of the islanders were there and many visitors came too.
Island here in Eigg. So it's my great pleasure to
Music
welcome
plays an important part of island life. Many bands are invited to perform. Ah, well, I suppose I'd better get ready for another day. Walking to the caves is very pleasant. There are lots of wild flowers to see. You may see butterflies. This painted lady probably came over from France. There's a lot of insects all over the island. With insects you get birds. This garden warbler is singing for a mate. On your left, you get a good view of Castle Island. The caves can't be seen from here. You need to descend a fairly steep path. This is the only land approach to the caves. Massacre Cave is where the most horrendous atrocity of clan warfare took place around 1577, when the entire population of some 395 souls, except for one old woman, was wiped out. They had hidden for 3 days before being found by Alistair Trotter's revenge party. A fire was lit outside the entrance, killing everybody inside by smoke inhalation. This was probably the last those poor islanders saw. Further along the shore you come to a much larger cave, now known as Cathedral Cave, where in the 17th century outlawed priests secretly conducted mass with converted islanders. Not many churches have a view like that. As you travel on towards the Grulins, with luck you should see lots of interesting things apart from the scenery. These baby black caps keeping Mum and Dad very busy. In 2008, electrification of the island took place, and these wind turbines are part of the renewable energy system. This is the pitchstone south face of the Sgúr, formed by two of the youngest layers of volcanic ash in between. This is the only evidence of violent volcanic activity on Eigg. Around the level of the spike and notch at the foot of the crag, some coarse breccia rock is exposed, originally deposited in a forested river valley, which was overwhelmed by the first pitchstone eruption some 55 million years ago. Continuing along the path, we come to the Grulins. This is Grulin Bothy, with its wonderful view of the Isle of Muck. Life is very peaceful here, but these two hooded crows are giving this buzzard a hard time. This is Upper Grulin, and in the early 18th century was one of 8 tracts of land rented out. As you wander around the remnants of these old dwellings, you try to imagine what life was like then. All the trials and tribulations, the laughter and the tears. Life, in fact, was very hard. The land at Grulin was not good, and the farmers had to pay a high rent. Consequently, they were short of food every spring. The highest point. Walking along the top, you can see an aerial view of the columns of pitchstone. When you get to the edge, you are rewarded with wonderful panoramic views of most of the island. The sheer water looks very small from up here. That's Castle Island. Kildonan, the forestry, Gleedale and Howlin, and the Isle of Rum in the background. Traversing, southwestwards we come to a defensive Iron Age fort commanding a view in all directions. There's a very good view across to Rum and into Lag Bay. At the base of the fort and looking over the edge, there's an aerial view of the weathered top of hexagonal pillar formations in the pitchstone. You'll find lots of wild flowers growing up here as well. One view from the fort would have been Claredale and Lag Bay, named by the Norse when they colonised the island as the Bay of the Pounding South. Lag would have been a very productive farm with its rich soil. There has been a farmhouse here for hundreds of years, this one since the early 18th century. The Lochen at Lag, known as the Giant's Footprint, is a silted-up kettle hole caused by the melting of ice trapped in rock gouged from the bedrock by the last glacier, and it now supports a wide range of plants and animals. Eigg is home to 4 different species of damselflies. Here are just a few. This blue-tailed damselfly just having lunch. It's at Lag where the hydro turbine is situated. The water is funnelled down from a purpose-built dam on the edge of the forestry. This hydro contributes a considerable amount of renewable energy for the island. The island is home to many different species of gull. You'll see many species gather where fresh water runs into the sea. The oyster catcher finding a sandwich. It's a mystery how it knew it was there. Can't think of a nicer place to chew the cud. The beach does get a bit crowded. This beach at Lag is where some of the first settlers may have landed some 5,000 years ago. Just up from Laga Beach, the west-facing coastline supports a wide variety of flowers and birds. In May and June, there are a wide variety of orchids on display on grassy banks. Seaweed harbours a lot of food in the form of insects, small crustaceans and worms. The hooded crow has learnt to search the seaweed in order to harvest this food supply. One trick the hooded crow has learnt to do is, having found a shell, it then flies up and drops it on rocks. It may have to do this several times before it breaks. Where the fresh water runs over the rock, larvae and small crustacean gather. They provide food for this pied wagtail. The shore not only provides food for this ringed plover, but also plenty of camouflage as it makes its way back to its nest and eggs. Oh good, they're still there. Hang on, this can't be right, they seem to have got bigger. Ah! That's better, much more comfy. Silly me. The shore is also home to the oyster catcher, where it feeds on shellfish, worms and, of course, oysters. Like the ringed plover, the oyster catcher also uses the stones to camouflage its nest and eggs. The male keeps guard. Any sign of trouble, he raises the alarm. When all the fuss has died down, the female returns to the long job of incubation. At low tide, there are a few rock pools which are home to many creatures. There are a few small waterfalls along the coast. There's something magical about the sound of running water. Herons are not the only fishermen on the island. There's Scruff and David as well. They go out in most weather conditions. Lobsters, crabs and prawns are their main catch. They are both very careful not to take undersized catch, as this would ruin their fishing in the future. Occasionally they get a surprise in their creels. Looks like this conger eel had a narrow escape.
So the tail bitten off my seal. The tail's bitten off. Yeah.
Occasionally they see minke whales. On this trip we saw porpoise. I think they're both happy when they're making for home. North of Lag Bay are cliffs of Valto's sandstone, the most massive of the basement rock formations below the lava flows. Are embedded within it until weathering loosens their hold and they fall onto the shore below. A little further along the shore you come to as yet unexplained crosses carved in the rock face. Next you come to a beautiful waterfall. All this water is heading for the sea and again provides many advantages to wildlife. This pair of grey wagtails find plenty of insects for their young and, of course, themselves. Because it is fresh water, birds like to wash in it. It's very important for all birds to keep their feathers in good condition, and in the case of this common gull, as with all the gulls, they need to keep their feathers well oiled. They do this by collecting oil from a gland at the base of the tail and smearing it on their feathers. If you're lucky, you may see shelduck. This shag drying off after fishing. Next you come to the singing sands. When they're very dry, they squeak when walked on, hence their name. Across the Bay of the Singing Sands can be seen a raised beach. Due to the isostatic rebound of the Earth's crust, once the weight of the last glacier was removed, some 15,000 years ago and onwards, by stages, the beach rose to its present level. It is now rich in wildflowers. The clear waters around Eigg are very fertile and home to a lot of fish. The shag is not alone. The otter is also very good at fishing, catching all sorts of fish and crustaceans. This playing in the pool helps Mum teach her cub all the twists and turns needed to catch fish successfully. Afterwards, they can catch up on some grooming and have a play. Mum is always on guard. Otters have a very good sense of smell, and I think she has just spotted someone, so she is soon off. Ravens are the largest of the crow family, and there are quite a few on the island. As we make our way round, we come to Talham Island. You sometimes see grey seals here. Ascending to the northern sheep pasturage called Talham, one arrives at a jumble of rocks called erratics, dropped by the last glacier as it melted some 15,000 years ago. Erratics can be massive, almost house size. This buttress is at the foot of the northeastern face of Donnan Talisker, the highest northern summit, and is a higher exposure of Valto's sandstone, which rises to several hundred feet above sea level. We are now looking at a foreshortened view of the pale Mugarite band and the weathered basalt lava flows that overlie the Valto's sandstone. Looking up beneath the western spur of the northern cliffs, we see a thin red line sandwiched between the first lava flow and the pale Mugarite flow above. It's a clear exposure of a fossil laterite soil that had time to establish itself in the semi-tropical ecosystem it supported over the thousands of years between lava flows. If you climb to the top, you get a wonderful view of Hoolin, Cleardale, and as far as the Sgúr. Well worth the effort. Below lies 5 Pennies, originally a Viking farm. The ground is marshy here and home to both the long-leaved and the round-leaved sundew, with their long and sticky tentacles waiting for any small insect to stick to them. Also growing here are acres of yellow irises and abundant bird life. The type of ground here is ideal for bog-loving plants, and you should find a good selection. Here is just a small sample.